Hey everybody. Hope you guys can hear me. Let me just make sure this thing is working. And we will start jumping in. A lot of good news today, a lot of good stuff happening in the world. And I'll start by congratulating 4 new whole corners today within the Patreon community. So that is just awesome. Every day we are minting. There we are. Yeah, we're alive. I always have to check that because I never want to go through a situation where I'm talking for ages and nobody can hear me. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Happy Sunday, everybody. And without further ado, let's jump in. This is every week I answer all the top questions from out there, the stuff that's on your minds. So without further ado, math, money, freedom. You guys know the drill. And the bear is still on the wall. And disclaimer, of course, none of this is financial advice. So let's jump in to the very, very first question. And this is what everybody, hey, from a German living in Bulgaria. I spent a lot of time in Sofia as well. So great town. University of Sofia is amazing. Let's jump into the first question of the day. Everybody's worried about CBDCs. CBDCs are coming. They're coming fast. And people are concerned. So this question popped in from Michael BC. If other nations follow China's lead and ban Bitcoin in favor of CBDCs, is there still a path forward for Bitcoin? Now, this is incredible because 12 years ago we were on the brink of a huge financial services bailout. That's exactly how Bitcoin got started in the first place. And today we are also on the brink of obsoleting central banks, which is incredible with the whole DeFi revolution, with everything that Bitcoin is doing, etc. So the answer to your question, Michael, is it's uncanny you asked this today because literally 12 years ago today, this was posted. One of the very first pieces of code, the first block. And Satoshi knew that Bitcoin was freedom. And basically, he said, Chancellor on brink of second bailout. And this is exactly what's happening. So the point is, central banks are scrambling to build a digital currency so they can better control the people. The only true source of money that people can actually use as a store of value, not necessarily as a currency yet because of scalability issues, we'll talk about that in a minute, is Bitcoin. And everybody's getting very nervous. So I think the more, Michael, the short answer to your question, the more central bank digital currencies come, the higher the demand will be for Bitcoin. Nobody in their right minds would want a central bank digital currency fiat. It just makes no sense. It's like fiat, but worse, if that's even possible. So thank you for the question. You got people in from Slovenia as well. I just see that in the comments. Thank you so much. So this question is from Tyler D. Which Bitcoin proxies do you think have the greatest growth potential over the next 12 months, 3 years, 5 years? So Tyler, you sure know how to ask the questions. That is a loaded question, which is not that easy to answer. So basically, if all else being equal and the premiums are the same, then I think MicroStrategy is the best proxy. And the reason for this is, despite the premium, is they can do a couple of things. One, financial jujitsu. Number two, let's just jump in and talk about, again, long-winded answer, but number two, they could do a whole bunch more. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about some of the big Bitcoin proxies that are out there today. And I put this model together and shared it with Patreon. And the reason for this is so much is changing right now. Now, the model here highlights a couple of things. One, the amount of market cap for every single company that's there. I picked the companies that are publicly traded. Most of them are US or Canadian. It's incredible to see how many Canadian companies are there. So a big up for all the Canadians out there. And I know there's a lot of Canadians in the audience probably right now. But I took the market cap of the companies. I took the number of Bitcoins they hold, calculated the Bitcoin value, and the percentage of the market cap, which is Bitcoin value today. And there's a couple of things that are very interesting to know. One is Voyager Digital is really running up the charts very quickly. And I'm going to analyze them next week. Hut 8, you've heard me rave about Hut 8 for a long time. They hope to have 5,000 Bitcoins by December of this year. And it's all the other usual suspects like Galaxy Digital, Argo Blockchain, Marathon, Bitfarms, Riot, Coinbase is there, Square is there, and Tesla's there. A lot of people think, oh, but isn't Tesla a good proxy for Bitcoin? No. 0.22% of their holding on the balance sheet is represented by Bitcoin. So it isn't even a drop in the bucket. Same thing for Square, 0.23%. Same thing for Coinbase, 0.3%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out an arbitrage model alongside this model and share it with you all and identify exactly what the intrinsic value is of these companies and if they are investable or not. So we'll come back to that in a minute too. There's another related question. So digging into one of those, the other question came from Brittinni. Thank you, Brittinni, for the question. If I have to choose between MicroStrategy and GBTC in a retirement account, which is best? So, Brittinni, tricky question. So if both, again, as I mentioned before, I like MicroStrategy because of how they invest, how they accumulate. Now, the important thing to note is with GBTC, it's at a discount right now. We hit 15% on Friday, which is huge. The lockup started on the 16th, which is Friday, and it's supposed to be running through today. So we'll see what happens with there. But again, what I like about MicroStrategy, three things. One, their financial jiu-jitsu. Two, options, the ability to manage risk. Three, MicroStrategy will operate and generate around at least $8 billion in revenue over the next 10 years, I estimate. So over the next 10 years, their total net income should be, $944 million. And the net present value of that would be about $700 million. So if you're using a 5% discount rate, that's the number. So when you look at the premium today of MicroStrategy, 70% of that is tied up on the future value of the intrinsic value of MicroStrategy itself. So the margin, the premium for Bitcoin is actually quite small when you consider the intrinsic value and the growth rate of MicroStrategy itself. So from that perspective, I still think MicroStrategy is better. If you are investing short term, like say 36 months or 24 months or less, and you just want to speculate in the price of Bitcoin and you're in a retirement account, maybe GBTC is the better option. If you have access to covered calls and options, then you can manage risk and you can generate kind of monthly, quarterly income. I would go with MicroStrategy. So thank you, Brittinni, for the question. Let's jump ahead. And this question is from Scott, another very interesting one. And this is kind of a false narrative, has been around there for a long time. I'm constantly trying to convince my friends that Bitcoin is legit and not the first choice for criminals. But I can't give them a straight answer when huge ransom demands are made by Bitcoin very quickly. So, Scott, it's true. Bitcoin has received a lot of negative press by criminals asking for a payment in Bitcoin in these new ransomware attacks. However, the truth is only a fraction of Bitcoin transactions are associated with illicit activity, including ransomware scams, illicit purchases, etc. And this is far less than 1%. And in fact, FBI have come out openly and said they would prefer if criminals use Bitcoin because it's easier for them to catch them and track the money and confiscate it back. So, and guess what percentage of Bitcoin transactions are used for illicit crime today? It's less than 0.4%. Now, guess what percentage of cash transactions are used for crime in America? It's at least 5%. So basically, cash is about 11 or 12 times more frequently used than Bitcoin. And remember, there's a lot more cash than Bitcoin. So if you look at the relative usage and dollar value of the crime, fiat is infinitesimally bigger. So please use these kind of numbers for your friends. It's really, really interesting to look at. But I have a little bit more for you. And I pulled this off the internet. And this basically is an old chart. It's out of date. It's 2020. But it shows the illicit share of crypto being less, of crypto in transactions related to crime being less than 1%. In fact, it's currently reported by Chain Analysis 0.34% in 2020 per the annual crypto crime report. And CipherTrace also estimates the figure to be less than 0.5%. So again, a fraction of 1% or whatever. So this is really interesting. Now, according to other data, if we look at global crime statistics, it's estimated that 5% of GDP, global GDP, which is $4 trillion, is connected with money laundering and illicit activity. Okay, so net, the crypto and crime narrative is blatantly false. And they are the numbers to back it up. Okay, so show your friends, send it to your friends. If you want a copy of the deck, drop a comment below. I'll share it with you and you can just give them those slides. Okay, so that's just silly, but thank you for the question because a lot of people are concerned about that. Now, do you use this from Tom K? Do you see a stock market correction coming this year? I would like to sell a commercial property, but I think there will be some volatility this fall. So this is an interesting question. I love the real estate ones and market timing ones and everything else. So it's very, very difficult to predict exactly what the market's going to do. And I wouldn't be genuine if I knew exactly what's going to happen, but I do believe a 10% correction could happen in August timeframe, not too far from now. But what I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, exactly what percentage and when. Now, what I can tell you, though, it's important to always be prepared for market corrections, and that's why I've got nearly a 23% cash position right now. And if you're concerned about a market downturn and considering whether to sell a commercial property, the way I'd approach it is really consider if you are in a solid position for a market downturn, and also where your property is and what's happening in that market. So, for example, if you have New York office space, it's not a good place to be because it's 22% capacity available. Same thing in San Francisco. But if it's other type of commercial property, like for storage facilities near big industrial areas, they are actually doing quite well. So it's good to know exactly what the market situation is, how much capacity is, and what the trends are. Are people coming back to offices, for example, into Manhattan, into San Francisco? And the indications that tell me, yes, they are. Some employers are actually thinking about mandating things like vaccines to make sure that happens. So the other thing that's important is if you are selling, make sure you have leases that are far from expiring and you get a much better multiple on your place when you sell your property. So that's what I would say. And it also depends on what you want to do with the money that you get from the real estate. If you want to invest it in Bitcoin, I know a lot of people are trying to sell up some assets so they can be part of the Bitcoin revolution. So Tom K, hope that helps you somewhat. Can you explain, interesting question from Scooterizutz, hope I got that right. Can you explain how crypto owners could use decentralized finance rather than the exchanges? So this is a good question. And I get this kind of seldom because not very many people actually use decentralized exchanges. And just a word of warning as well, decentralized finance and exchange platforms are for advanced users, so use at your own risk. Make sure you learn about them before you jump in. There also can be some restrictions on use, so please check in your local jurisdictions exactly what the situation is there. Now, how DeFi is used depends on the platform. I like to use Uniswap as an example, since that is one of the first decentralized finance exchanges. And the way Uniswap works is you can trade in your ERC20 token and for any other ERC20 token by simply connecting your Web 3.0 wallet to Uniswap, and you can perform the swap. There's no KYC, no login, no questions asked. And what's going on in the back end is there's a liquidity providers that are providing these trading pairs that you can trade against. And it's unlike centralized exchanges where the platform has to facilitate buyers and sellers. Uniswap does not. And there is also an order book. It's fascinating to look at and how simply it works. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on the whole DeFi realm. Because if you just play with things like Aave and Uniswap and stuff, it's like, wow. Why can't traditional financial services organizations run that way? And I put together on Uniswap as well, a video on it. So please check it out if you're interested in more details. But that's the way of the future, and it's super fascinating to play with. So next question. This is from George C. Have you heard of Robinhood coming out with a wallet? Hey, George. So currently, Robinhood doesn't allow its customers to transfer crypto to wallets outside of its platform. But the good news is their COO, Christine Brown, said publicly a few weeks ago, I think it was, that she plans to add crypto transfers to external wallets. And that is awesome news. She also says considering things like staking and lending within the Robinhood platform. You know, they need to play catch up with what's happening in the rest of the players, because Robinhood was revolutionary in its day a couple of years ago, but now they're already really falling behind. She has not set a deadline for these features, and it's not that difficult to implement, so I don't know what's going to take them so long, but I do expect something probably before the end of this year. And so we'll see what happens. But she is a little bit concerned about the traders that they have today and the risks for those traders with things like self-custody. but I think the writing is on the wall and they're going to have to do it sooner or later. So George, thank you for the question. Next question is from Ravi. What if big tech, Google, Facebook, Microsoft cut off access to crypto? So first of all, Ravi, are you referring to Bitcoin or another crypto? If you're talking about Bitcoin, there isn't anything big companies can do to cut it off. And that's one of the most beautiful things about Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin doesn't rely on any of these big tech names for infrastructure or platform or anything else. And Bitcoin is open source software run by a decentralized network of nodes and miners. So, and in a way, big tech is the antithesis of Bitcoin, where technology is centralized and closed source. So that's the piece of good news. Now, big tech wouldn't be able to shut off Bitcoin. However, that can't be said for all crypto, though. For example, Ethereum runs on AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. And if Amazon decided to get upset with Ethereum, they could flick a switch and turn it off. Of course, Ethereum would be able to find a new network pretty fast, but it would be a little bit of business interruption. But that's one of the differences between a truly decentralized platform like Bitcoin and one that isn't fully decentralized like Ethereum. I'm still very bullish on Ethereum too, because of all that they run. So thank you for the question. Nathan W. Thoughts on VLDR? So this is kind of an interesting one. I heard you mention that VLDR was undervalued in one of your videos. So this must have been a slight misunderstanding, because I did touch on Lidar in one of my old videos, and I said it was kind of overvalued from a perspective, and I do not invest in the Lidar space. And the reason being is fourfold. First of all, it's expensive, it's ugly, and it's unnecessary. But most importantly, Lidar cannot recognize road signs, which is a big problem. Now, I have full FSD in my Tesla X, and I can do a demo if anybody's interested. Again, drop a comment below. I know there's tons of people that are doing version 9 demos out there, but if you want to see my take on exactly what I think of it today, I'm blown away every day by the car. So, and I don't drive that much, but when I do, it's pretty impressive. But and then a lot of people ask about the cost. Is $10,000, is it really worth it? Well, for me, I find it invigorating to be part of the messy process of developing new technology, and I've been enamored by Tesla since day one. So, of course, I have to be part of it. So, from that perspective, VLDR for me, not a good investment. I wouldn't invest. Why not just invest in Tesla? And if you have ever seen any of the Waymo cars running around San Francisco, literally, there's like $250,000 worth of Lidar hanging off this ugly car, and it just looks stupid. So I don't think Lidar is the future, and I am testament to the fact that Elon Musk has cracked the code on it, and I have a lot of faith in him as well. So let's see. Quick recap. Your contributions are donations. We have a new animal, and we have photographs of these animals, and we know where we can visit them as well. So we just adopted a 17-year-old tiger. His name is Sar. We have an Opsar sometimes in the audience too, so he'll like that. It's one of the reasons we chose Sar. He loves to greet folks and eat grass. And donations are used for care, feeding, and maintenance of these animals. And some of the tigers, unfortunately, they're very inbred and have a lot of medical issues, so a lot of vet bills too. So if you've ever saw a show called The Tiger King, you probably know why. So anyway, I'm going to open up the Q&A. Big thank you to everybody on Patreon. Again, 4 new Patreon whole coiners today. So we are now at approximately 645 by my count. So 350 to go to get to my goal of 1,000 new whole coiners within the Patreon community, and to build up an extremely strong area. So let me pop up, see if you have any questions from the team here. And it's a Sunday. I'm going to pop out the chat and see what's going on with the gang. And thank you all for coming. First one I see is from Chad G. Hey, James, at what point would you think of trading in and out of GBTC shares if you held it in a retirement account? So the beauty of GBTC in a retirement account, you can buy and sell and you can day trade it all day long. And I did that with a thing called Bitwise, and I reduced my cost basis in the Bitwise, which is a complete scam thing, but it's so volatile, it's so easy to play. So my cost basis in Bitwise, I still have some in an IRA. It's about $10. And I don't know what it's trading at now. I don't even look at it anymore. But yeah, you can DCA into it. You can follow the volatility. It's amazing. Just run a comparison in TradeView of how you compare the pricing of GBTC to Bitcoin and identify some arbitrage opportunities. And it also, from the time it opens in the morning to during the day to the close, there's lots of great opportunities to reduce your cost basis, and you don't have to worry about taxes. So that's the beauty of that. Ray Rojo, James, sell my Microsoft and ArcF to hold GBTC. Microsoft is very top heavy. As you know, I sold out of my Apple. You know, there was a couple of years ago, you could have asked me would I have ever sold Apple. I would have said no. But when I saw it hit 150, hit the switch. Same thing with some of my PayPal. I don't own Microsoft. I was looking at the chart on Friday. I think what I would do is I'd sell part of your Microsoft, get into GBTC, especially if you're in a tax-free account, because there's a lot more upside there. Maybe get some MicroStrategy instead. Switch your micro for micro. Makes sense. And then the ArcF, not too sure about that one. It is a little bit beaten down. I don't like selling things that are that beaten down. So jury's out on that. Let me have a look at ArcF and get back to you in a future conversation. I look at the ArcG and the ArcK in much more detail. CJ Jean, thank you so much for the animals. Yes, this goes a long way to helping them, especially their vet bills are getting very expensive. Inflation is hitting vets big time, and 2 of our monkeys, they only eat avocados, which are expensive too. So it's kind of crazy. So big thank you for that. Let me see if I missed any other questions up top. And I think, yes. Siddhartha, how do you feel about Grayscale Bitcoin Unlock event? It has happened, and has it been absorbed in the market already? I'm not too sure. I think it's all happening over the counter, which means that's why they do it at a weekend, so it doesn't affect the stock market and the pricing next week. I think it's going to be, as I said, a nothing burger. It'll have very small influence. And remember, the people jumping in and buying are big, heavy hitters, and they're consuming it all. And I had this weird theory as well that maybe Grayscale is doing a direct deal with either a hedge fund or MicroStrategy to offload some of their coins. So we'll see. We'll find out Monday, and I'll give you guys an update then. But because it's over the weekend, it's happening behind closed doors, I can't really tell. So thank you for the question. Would love your take on FSD. That would be amazing. Yes, of course. It is mind-blowing. So I've had, I think it's called enhanced autopilot for years, for nearly 3 years. And I got the FSD very recently. And it's different. Some people say it can cause a little bit of a heart attack because it is still version 9 of a software. Sometimes it breaks for no reason, accelerates for no reason. Sometimes it misses things. But what's incredible is you can take it. I live on a private road, and it learns it every time you go up and down the road. So I'll definitely do a video on that too. So appreciate the question. Gilles de Clerc, must be from Belgium. Yes. What do you think big money is waiting for right now? Crypto. Thanks for the killer content. Cheers from Belgium. Big money aren't waiting, they're gathering. And that can be seen with chain analysis, and the amount of the 1,000 Bitcoin plus whales are growing. We had 7 new ones over the last week or 10 days. So they are manipulating. They are keeping price suppressed, and they are accumulating. But the good news is, the really, really good news that makes me so happy is the 0.1 to 1 Bitcoin holders and the 1 to 5, 1 to 10 Bitcoin holders are growing. So retail is not being shaken out, and retail is getting their piece. And it's just fascinating to see. So thank you so much for the question. Bring Breedlove in for an interview. Dave Pulitzer, thank you so much. I love Breedlove. I love the way he looks at things. There's a whole bunch of people that people want us to talk to. So within Patreon, I will make a list of who you want. We've got a guy called Dixon in the UK. I'm going to be talking to Cryptos Are Us again. He wants me on his channel on Monday. So him and I'm going to have a glass of wine. He's going to have maybe a scotch or something. And we're going to have a chat tomorrow night. I'll still be doing my regular posting as well. But Breedlove is great. I love the way he looks at the macro impact of money printing and how it's easy to get to a $12.5 million Bitcoin in the year 2031. And I backed into his numbers. I'd love to share some of my spreadsheets with him to see if I understood it correctly. So great question, and thank you for the suggestion. And we have, yeah, CJ Jean, thank you so much as well for your contribution too. So let me see if I missed anything. So, Siddhartha, again, thank you so much. What do you think of the stock to flow model? So, and I've thought a lot about this, and I've looked at stock to flow model for palladium, for silver, for gold. I nearly got into a silver trade a few months ago, so I spent a lot of time digging into that. And people think the stock to flow model is bulletproof, but no. Gold markets, silver markets, palladium markets, they're all manipulated. Bitcoin market is being manipulated right now, and I think that is why it is broken down. You've got people, unfortunately, like Plan B, he's beginning to lose faith in his model, but I have not. Because literally, the universe is mathematics, and everything's driven by supply and demand, period. It's only a matter of time before the model comes back to where it needs to be. So it is beaten down now. I think it's going to come back. I have no doubt in my mind we're going to see 100,000 Bitcoin, $100,000 Bitcoin. Maybe not by the end of this year, but early next. I think the cycle is going to be elongated. I just think the big money banks, the high net worth individuals, they are controlling the markets. They're keeping the price depressed with all the manipulations. Because I watch it. I watch all of the short ratios for options, the long ratios, and I see the way they play it, day to day. And it's definitely being controlled and being suppressed. But all I can say to everybody is keep on stacking. Like just look at inflation numbers. And I always talk about inflation. Look at inflation. And what would you rather hold? So I had a question, Siddhartha, as well, from somebody today. They said, well, Bitcoin can never be a currency because it fluctuates by, 20% if you're buying apples. It's like the analogy I gave back was, so if you went into Whole Foods on Friday, they had a fish called halibut. It's $29.99 a pound. You go in there today, it's $19.99 a pound. That's a 33% fluctuation in 2 days. So humans understand fluctuations. Now, if you're in Argentina or Turkey, your inflation is 50% plus. If you're in the United States, it's 15% plus. So people are used to fluctuations and volatility. It's the nature of the game. You look at Tesla stock, Amazon stock, like Tesla stock over the last 2.5, 3 years. The volatility is crazy. It went from 35 to 850 in 15, 14 months. So again, volatility is there. People are used to it. So Troy Ochsenbein, thoughts on Engine. Engine I own. It is my only pure play NFT play. And we're going to analyze it within the next week or so because they are doing a lot more beyond pure, video game type NFT stuff. So it's truly fascinating. And in fact, Engine has shown tremendous resilience with this weak market as well compared to others. So big cheers to you guys and thank you for the donations. Alias Real. Could you explain why Bitcoin value goes quicker up when there are less coins on the exchanges? I don't get the concept. So basically, again, imagine you walk into a store and there are 10,000 apples on the shelf, or you walk into a store and there's 3 apples on the shelf. The person selling those apples can determine exactly what price to charge based on the amount of supply. Same thing for Bitcoin on the exchanges. Because the people that are buying it now, they're buying it to hold it. They're not buying to speculate or trade. They buy it, take it off the exchange, and they put it in cold storage, and it's left there. Just like they're buying a bar of gold. It goes into a vault. It stays there. You don't take it out every day and play with it and look at it. So from that perspective, I believe there'll come a time when that supply crunch will happen, which means the supply will cease to exist or become very thin on the exchanges, and that will cause psychological panic for buyers. And it'll also drive up prices. And also for the sellers that are going to sell, when they see there's no supply, they'll be less likely to sell. And that'll also drive up pricing pressure. Again, it's super simple, supply and demand. And the reason I got excited by Bitcoin in the first place in the year 2017 was the scarce fixed hard supply. And the fact that it's actually deflationary because so many people lose their coins. So Alias, thank you so much for your question. And I'm going to drink some Dunder Mifflin coffee. It's iced coffee is now a thing for me these days, which is a curse. I can't stop drinking it. So, Chance. Hi, James. Your thoughts on trusting Celsius with our hard-earned Bitcoin versus cold storage and want to believe. So, my take is, if you need the cash flow, imagine you've got 10 Bitcoin. I have no problem with somebody putting one in something like Celsius at all, because up to one, they pay you a pretty good rate right now. I think it's 6.5% depending on your jurisdiction. It's a little higher in Europe. But I would never, ever put all my eggs in one basket. That also goes for exchanges. That also goes for ledgers. So it's good to spread it around just in case maybe that 0.1% chance that something bad could happen. I would always be careful. So if you need the cash, if you need that extra 6% on 35,000, so you can be free and not work for a paycheck, and you can do something good or maybe start a business, then do it. If you don't need it, I wouldn't. So that being said, earning yield on stablecoins like USDC, yes. If you got $20,000 sitting in your bank account, stick it in Celsius and get yield on USDC. That's what I say. So Chance, good question. Opsar, yes, SAR. We got a tiger name. I knew you'd be there. A tiger named after me, exactly. You shouldn't have. Yellen said they made progress in a global corporate tax rate. If true, global BTC ban is possible, in my opinion. Yeah, interesting one again. You know, you can try as a government, you can try as a coordinated set of governments to ban Bitcoin. You can't. The US can't. Janet Yellen, that's a good name for her. I might call her Jellen. She might want to, but Jerome Powell is okay with it. He sees it as a store of value, not a currency. And that's why people like Michael Saylor like the store of value narrative. They don't like the currency narrative, because if you call Bitcoin a currency, even though it technically could be and is in some cases, it makes the central banks very, very nervous. So I think the global corporate tax rate, they will try pull that off. But you know how hard it is to get 120 countries aligned on taxes, especially many countries that depend on having a low tax jurisdiction to attract industry. You would have to unravel so many agreements. So it's one of those things, yeah, hey, we're printing a shitload of money. Sorry for cursing. We need to start generating some revenue. What are we going to do? You look behind the couch, you go and raise taxes. They tried that with the capital gains. Biden, the president of the US, said we're going to increase capital gains to 42%. They even threatened capital gains on unrealized gains, which is the stupidest thing I ever heard. And I knew that was a non-starter to begin with. That stuff rattles the markets, but the implementation and the approval of this stuff is next to impossible. So OPSAR, yep, they'll try, but I didn't know you were in Canada, by the way. That's cool. But they will not succeed. So that's just my take on that. And again, CBDCs, and the more government try to quash this, the more the smart money will say, oh my God, all right, things are getting really bad right now, and I need to hedge my bets, because this is not going to end up well for the fiat currencies and the central banks and everything else. So I'm going to need a little piece. And once everybody, like we're at 1.5% adoption right now, once the penny starts to drop, and every day the penny is dropping with more people, when they go into the store and see that the price of apples have tripled, they say, oh my God, something is really going on right now. So that's the way I see it. So big thank you for that question, Upsar, and hopefully we'll have a photo of our new adopted baby soon for you. Billy Joe Van Cleef, what do you think of TextLead's Coin Million Token that aims to become the largest decentralized marketing agency? Yeah, we are actually looking into this and some of the new social plays that are happening right now as well. So I don't know if it'll ever come of anything. We haven't done a really deep dive, but I have been working on it because I spent a lot of time. I worked at the biggest global marketing agency a while ago too. So it is one of the areas that is very interesting to me. So Billy Joe, we are definitely going to look into that, as well as we're doing analysis on the engine coin and all the other good stuff, as well as some of the social plays. I can't remember the name of the big social play that's happening, but we're digging into that as well. So big thank you for the questions. And with that, Johnny Yellow's in the clouds. So we got one more quick question from anybody. You missed my super chat. Can you do analysis of RSR and REN? Both have good use cases. Yes, thank you, Shambar. Maybe I missed your super chat because it was during the time I presented, but I make sure I cover all of them. We will look at that. We're definitely going to look at REN, but one of the things now, There's so many tokens to look at, and there's so many cases. And I think the more I see so many small tokens going after so many use cases, the more it puts me back into the square of just looking at things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, because there's too many fighting over too small a space in some cases. But we'll definitely look at REN. RSR, I am not sure. I know that REN is on the list for sure. But thank you so much, Shambav, for the question. Sorry, I missed the super chat as well. And Theta as well. Yeah, we just did a recent poll within Patreon of the top cryptos to look at next. And we're going to start slowing down on the number of token analysis, because a lot of demand from Patreon is for me to look more into where the next big stocks are, like dig deeper into the Palantirs, get updates on Tesla, and do some of my benchmarks. And let me know if you're interested in this, but one of the cool things that I used to do in the past is benchmark things like Tesla versus Bitcoin, who's going to win in 5 years, Google versus Ethereum, that type of stuff. So I think that's interesting as well, because we do have that disjoint right now between the equity markets and the crypto markets, which is brilliant. When you have a lack of correlation, it's wonderful for money-making ideas. So thank you. Dylan O'Reilly, Silvergate Capital. Very interesting. I prefer Galaxy Digital, but I love what Silvergate are doing in terms of onboarding banks and helping them to custody crypto. Shoeless Joe, millions of channels like a Palantir already. True that. And I try not to do stuff that everybody else has kicked to death, because no point unless I can come up with a completely different use case or benchmark. So I like to build valuation models and compare, say, what will Palantir be worth versus Google in 10 years? Because when I look at Palantir, I always think of Google, because a lot of the capabilities that Palantir have, Google could easily replicate. So that's what makes me concerned. But I own both. In fact, my Google position is a lot bigger than my Palantir. So Dylan Riley, thank you. Much love from Tahoe. Yes. I was in the Truckee Tavern last night for dinner. So cool. Anyway, guys. Oh, one last question. Buford T. Justice. Very fancy name. Kathy Wood, Jack Dorsey, and Elon Musk will all be in the headlines around the world talking Bitcoin in a few days. Yes, they will. B-Day, or the B word, I think it's called. And that's going to be exciting. And I'm very interested in seeing the Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk debate. That's going to be exciting. And when these big things happen as well, what I do is I watch them and I summarize them and I put together a very quick nugget summary for you all. So expect that too. I'm going to let you guys go. I got to get on with the Sunday. And a big thank you for everybody who's been here. And I'll see you all soon. My throat's gone. Bye all.